Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. I am Amy. So for today's video, I am going to share with you some of the strategies that I use when taking notes, because taking good notes is such a crucial part to being successful in IB. So today's video is made for those people who struggle with taking their notes and those people who want some suggestions on how to organize their notes. So let's get started. So I know that a lot of people have started to take their notes on computers and iPads. I am old-fashioned person, so I go with notebooks. The principle though is approximately the same. The different ways for taking notes for different subjects. In today's video, I'm majorly going to focus on mathematics and sciences, humanities, and languages. In the IB, any of the sciences that are offered have a lot of workload and knowledge to be taken in, so keeping good notes and organized notes is key to success. And the same thing is for maths. The general principle for taking notes in the sciences and mathematics includes three things. So the first one is a notebook for taking notes in general during class. Now, it is okay for this notebook to be quite messy because you're taking notes in class and it is inevitable that you come back and add things to it. And the second thing is a practice notebook. Now, a key to success in the IB, for the sciences and mathematics especially, is to practice. This is so important, so you must have a practice notebook. And I strongly suggest that you have a separate one from the notes notebook, because when you go back and make your study guide, you don't want to see notes and practice questions all mixed together. This makes the process of making study guides very difficult. And the last thing is the study guide. So this is where you squeeze everything in after you have covered all the syllabus. Now, my habit is to make the study guide as I finish each of the topics so that I do not have to do everything at the end. Now, I'm going to show you some of my notebook for chemistry and maths. Okay, in chemistry, instead of using a notes notebook, we have the sorts of booklets for each topic that our teacher made for us, but you can make it for yourself too. So this is the booklet for topic 6, which is chemical kinetics. So as you can see, this is purely notes and content-based things that you have to learn. We complete this during class as the teacher explains. And this is my practice notebook for chemistry. It's quite messy, and as you can see, it's divided into topics. This is topic 6, practice question, and then topic 7, and so on, topic 8, and topic 9. It's pretty good to keep this sort of practice notebook and keep it separate from the notes one, so that when you, for example, when you go to make your study guide, it is really clear where you have to look at. And I think a good thing to do in the practice notes is when you encounter a difficult case or an unseen case, just note it down in the notes notebook that I showed you first, so that when you make your study guide, you can include that case in the study guide. Because if you are an experienced IB student, you will know that the way IB asks their questions is often very similar. So you start to see like repeating patterns as you do the past papers. So keeping an eye on some sort of special cases of questions as you do some past paper questions is always good for your final exam. So This is my key to success in chemistry. It has helped me to gain all 7s in IB Chemistry higher level. And this is the study guide that I have made for myself. After I have finished each of the topics, as you can see here, it's aligned from 1 to 10. In terms of topic 11, I have it in the other notebook because this is finished. So, how do I structure my study guides? Okay, this is the title page and then the subtopics. Now, the early pages of this is just purely information and content. The only difference between this and the first thing that I have showed you is that this is strictly made according to the syllabus that the IB has released. So understanding and skills that you have to gain for this topic and this subtopic. I think this is such a useful thing to do because you know the IB cannot ask you anything beyond the syllabus. So always keeping an eye on the things they release in terms of understanding and skills is a quite useful thing. And as you can notice, I use a lot of colors in my notes. That's because I just find it easier to learn if there are some colors. Now, this is really the key to success. As I told you before, when I do practice questions, I always keep an eye on the difficult cases that I encounter when doing past papers, and these cases are recorded here. This section is called Topic 1 during exams, and it is further divided into Paper 1 and then Paper 2. So this is where I record all the difficult cases that I find when doing practice questions, and I then subdivide them into the levels of difficulty indicated by the dot here. So this is a rather easy question, and this is a rather hard question. I find this way of keeping my notes and keeping these cases very useful, so that when you review, you're not just reviewing the content, you're actually reviewing how the IB is going to ask you questions and the different cases, types of questions they can ask you. And especially for topic 1, whose paper 1 is really difficult, it's always good to keep an eye on how they can ask you the content for paper 1. And then the same thing is done for paper 2, with the dots indicating the level of difficulty, and these are the sort of kinds of questions that can be asked in paper 2 for topic 1. And there are some sort of mark scheme answers that I sometimes include here. For example, this one. This is a question that is asked super frequently in the paper, so I just got the answer from the mark scheme and wrote it down. Now, learning the mark schemes is not always effective and a good way of studying, but sometimes it does help because it tells you how you're going to earn the points. So so sometimes using the mark schemes wisely could really help. And all the other topics are basically structured in this way, and it's just super useful to help me succeed in my exams. So this is the way I organize all of my chemistry notes, and this is the way that I prepare for all my chemistry exams. Okay, now let's see something from maths. I attended math higher level during my first semester of my junior year, but then I dropped, not because I had bad grades. I ended up with high 7 in math higher level after my first semester, but I just thought it was not worthy for me to spend so much time in math higher level when in reality I'm not actually needing it in my future. So that was the motivation behind my dropping. So I am familiar with both the note-taking process in math higher level and SL. Well, they're exactly the same. You can use exactly the same process for taking and keeping notes for both levels. So this is the notes notebook that I have for maths. So it's content-based. Again, I use a lot of colors because I feel they can help me learn. This is the practice notebook, and I would say in maths, practice is even more crucial than chemistry. So this is some practice things that I've done for math, purely practice. And look, this is what I do when I encounter a difficult case. I put stars below it to indicate that this question was actually a hard question, so that when I go back, when I make my study guide, I would go back to this case and then note it down. So this is an equivalent to the chemistry study guide that I showed you before. This is the one for math. The structure is exactly the same. Okay, this is the calculus unit, and it's purely based, content-based right here. Sometimes textbook can have really long explanations for a really simple formula. So in the study guide, I just ignore those explanations and keep the structure very simple by just noting down the formulae in it. Okay, integration, and here comes the crucial part during exams. And these are all the difficult cases that I have noted down as I go through some past paper and practice questions. So certainly when I was practicing, I made some mistake when attempting these cases, and so I have noted them down here. All right, yeah. So the process is exactly like the one in chemistry, and I really find this method of studying for the sciences and mathematics very effective in the IB. So be organized with the notes so that when you go back and review, you wouldn't find everything mixed and smashed together. So in terms of humanities, I take psychology and economics. As you know, for psychology and economics, the amount of information in terms of words is huge. So you don't want to reach the end of the syllabus finding that you have to cover a huge amount of text as your notes. So making notes long is crucial. Now, the way I take notes for economics and psychology is a bit different. So for economics, my best advice would be, if you're a person who likes to keep clean notes, then you read the book and take notes of a particular topic before the teacher teaches it. This is because a lot of people find it difficult to keep a clean and understandable notes when following the teacher during class, and this is true. Now you might ask, what if the teacher says something new? Well, this is where post-its come into play. This is the notes that I took before the teacher taught the class, and as you can see, it is very clean. It is very easily understandable. And during class, the teacher said something new. So I used the post-it and noted that something new and just put it besides the text, so that when I review this topic, I would add these notes to the adequate place within the notes that I have took for myself before the class. And it's always good to have some preview of the topic before the teacher teaches it, because that makes you understand and comprehend even more as the teacher reiterates. Now, another thing that I would like to show you is a special way of taking notes, not actually notes, but organizing our notes and content with economics and psychology. And this is what I call the prompts page. Okay, so in economics we have the so-called 10-mark questions and 15-mark questions for paper 1. So you go through the past papers and you write each of the possible prompts that were asked in the past down. This is a really good way to help you in preparation for your exams. So after you have mastered, look, another post-it here. After you have mastered all the content in this chapter, you go back to this page. You go through each of them. Make sure you can understand the question, what sort of diagrams you have to use, and the explanations you have to give. So this actually serves as a checklist, because then you are in a very good position to get ready for any sort of exams or tests. Okay, this is the notebook for paper 3 and paper 2 practice. Now, as you know, in economics, paper 3 is both a math and knowledge-based paper. So I keep a clean notebook for solely for paper 3 and paper 2 practice. Now, the way it's structured is like this. In the title, I have the year and time zone and the number of questions for the paper 3. And then after that, I have the so-called topic coverage. I think this is very useful because, in paper 3, the way the questions are asked is that they are a mix of different topics from different parts of the syllabus. So you can have like a question that includes both international trade and macroeconomics. This area called topic coverage helps you to understand what sorts of topics are being asked in this question. And then you go through the question on the time condition, and then you mark it. And then I have the final score here. Now let's switch to psychology. So the section for psychology wouldn't be long because the way that I take notes for psychology is quite similar to the way I take notes for economics, except for the fact that in psychology, because it's just purely words-based, you would have to write a bit more compared to economics. So this is my notebook for paper 2, and the way it is structured is the same for every topic. So what I have is the so-called topic page. This is everything that I have to know for this option, which is called health psychology. And then I start with each of the topics. So the first one is social cultural approach to stress. I start with essay questions. So the different types of essay questions that could be asked in a paper. This is both taken from the In Thinking website, which is a very well-known IB psychology website, and past paper. And then the necessary vocabulary for this topic. Vocabulary is really a key to writing a good psychology essay, so I would recommend that you keep like a word bank of a vocabulary. And then this is another key of a good essay: research study. You list out the research studies that you're going to use for this topic. And then critical thinking, because we're talking about an essay, therefore we always need some sort of critical thinking. Now, the way the notes are taken is in the format of an outline for the essay. So I start with the introduction, hook, definition, background content, controversy, because we have to introduce why is the topic worth of studying, and then the command term. The command term refers to the words that are here: discuss, evaluate, and contrast. And then you start with the research study. Each research study is broken down into aim, sample, method, procedure, results, conclusion, and then evaluation. In terms of evaluation, it's further broken down into strengths and limitations. And then you go on with the second research study, which is broken down in the same way, and then the third one. And then you have a sort of conclusion. The conclusion does not need to be long, and I usually don't have like a very detailed outline for the conclusion. It's just I write my conclusions as I go along in the essay. It just comes naturally when you finish the essay. So yeah, this is basically how every topic is structured, and this is such an effective way of preparing for the exam, because you literally have the essay written in front of you and you just have to learn the content. Now lastly comes the language part. So I think this is probably the most difficult subject to take notes for, and I absolutely agree with this, but there's certainly a way of doing it well. So the way I structure my notes in the language class, because I take Lang and Lit, so for paper 1 we have to analyze an unseen text, and there are different non-literary text types that we have to prepare for, and that this distinction, this categorization makes it easier to organize our notes. So this is just a notebook that I use for my class, and I think it is very messy. It is, yeah. It is very messy. I just took it as the teacher went along. Okay, so for the languages, I usually recommend having a really big binder in which you can have all your notes organized in a sort of like clear manner. So this is English paper 1. So the grading rubric, understanding the rubric is so important, especially for the languages. So really make sure that you have some sort of understanding or notes regarding the rubric, in terms of how you can achieve high against each of the criteria. And then time management, this is again key when writing paper 1 and paper 2s, because they're so time pressured. Then here we have a list of text types that could be asked for paper 1, and some sort of guides that I've taken both from the InThinking website and myself. This is a sample outline that I've made for my paper 1. This is a very big list of paper 1 samples that I've taken from the internet. Look, again, the rubric. So you're going to see that I have the rubric everywhere. And this is really to emphasize the importance of understanding the rubric in order to do well in the IB languages. So this is a series of samples. Let me see if I can take some out. Okay, so a series of samples written by students, good and bad, for me to read and annotate on. I think reading other people's samples is a really good way to see the common mistakes that are made, what are the things that can be improved to improve your own writing. So reading samples and keeping a place for samples is always good. Okay, and this is where I start to divide the text type. So the first one is advertisements. This is a very comprehensive guide that I've made for myself in terms of how to write a paper 1 for advertisements. So introduction, body 1, body 2, body 3, body 4, body 5. This provides a pretty good and comprehensible framework for structuring paper 1s. And here is the packet for advertisements. It contains a series of analysis. This is the section for political cartoon. These are the notes that I have taken from the internet and studied by my own, self-taught myself. And yeah, this is the first paper 1 that I have got a 7 on. So quite happy. This was my first, I think, semester exam for English, so that's good. And then terminology. This is so important. You have to have that sort of work band for your paper 1. This is a glossary that I've taken from the In Thinking. It's like 40 pages, but it's such a useful thing because when you're doing your analysis, you want to show the examiners that you really understand, and you can use the correct terminologies to describe the stylistic features or rhetoric features that are present within that text. So this is key. This is really, really the key, understanding the terminologies and make sure you can use them adequately. Okay, speech, I have already started. I have those notes in my computer, and because I can't go to school right now, I don't have a way of printing them out. So yeah. And then we come to paper 2. Again, paper 2, these are a series of samples. Reading samples, grading the samples is a really good way to help you understand what are the ways in which you can improve your own writing. And this is again another way of getting you to familiarize yourself with the reading rubric of the IB. Paper 2, Anarchist. This is the guide that I've made for the Anarchist. So paper 2 this year is cancelled, but I have made some really good notes for paper 2, so I do have some strategies. This is called quotes collection. So you know that in paper 2, when you're writing about the 2 literary texts, the examiners really expect you to include some sort of quotes in it to support your claims. So having this sort of quote collection is really helpful when you're revising for the test. This is the Accidental Death of an Anarchist, which is a quite popular paper 2 text that is being covered in many schools. So having this quotes collection and just a little short paragraph of analysis for this quote is really good, so that you know exactly which are the quotes that you're going to remember. And when you're selecting quotes, remember to select those that can be used widely. So a quote that can be used to represent this theme, but also the other theme. You know what I mean. And this is just a really long guide to the book as a whole, which includes some themes, character list, and yeah. Okay, so Handmaid's Tale, that was the second text that we have covered. And again, quote collection. This is always the first thing that I do. And some sort of highlighting here, and then the rest is again characters list. So I really follow exactly the same structure for all of my guides for the paper 2 text. This was this was a summer reading, 1984, George Orwell, a great book, a great classic. You must read it in your life. And yeah, that's it. This is everything, and I have some spare paper here to make notes if I want. And this is my huge binder for IB English. But hopefully you can see that, well, yeah, it is difficult to take notes for the languages, but it's not totally impossible. I really hope this video has helped you some ways, and see you next time.